was like a storm coming from far, far away. I felt it in the air.
So if you're like me, you found that very satisfying to watch. It's almost like when you watch a music video, or you're listening to music and you're playing something and you're like, ooh, that matched up so well, it just gave me the goosebumps. Well, this is that, but the game. And let's get it out of the way, right out of the gate. This game's presentation is fantastic. No, it's not the most beautiful game you've ever seen. It's not a AAA masterpiece that makes you awestruck when you look at it. It's a darn good looking game with a pretty damn good art style that always has me feeling like I'm looking at a metal album cover, with these gorgeous looking hand-drawn pictures with cutscenes that are paired up with some pretty good narration, albeit a little odd, having Troy Baker doing his best Matthew McConaughey southern drawl to do the narration as your little demon buddy Paz.
Let's just say somewhere a village was missing their idiot.
This presentation extends even to the main menu. Whether you're just hovering over different options for starting a new game or settings or what have you, the presentation of this game never falters. And even when you quit the game, you have a sick little animation where the unknown will give you some demon horns and a peace out right before she flies up off the screen. And it is all paired with some of the best video game music I've had in a video game in a while. I am constantly banging my head. I'm constantly vibing with this game because at all times it is metal. So how is the story? How is the campaign? This is a short but sweet campaign. There are 8 levels in Metal Hellsinger, each level having its own original song with a favorite vocalist from that type of metal, from Serge Tankian of System of a Down to Randy Blythe from Lamb of God. There is not a single moment in this game where I had thought to myself there was any kind of downtime with the mood or the music. Every track has you feeling like you gotta catapult straight into battle, but every level starts you out slowly and not into the thick of every track. At the start of every level, you get kind of the tempo of the music, and then you get more and more instruments as your combo multiplier builds up from 4 to 8 to 16. And once you get to 16, the vocals kick in, and you are just on a ride of rhythm and violence. And that brings us to the combat. The combat will feel very familiar to anyone who loves Doom. But the combat here, it was a little hard for me to get used to be quite honest. At the beginning, I struggled a little bit staying on rhythm and kind of keeping track of my positioning and rhythm-based firing rather than actual aiming and everything else that you worry about in a shooter usually. So it kind of required a bit of a brain retuning at the beginning. But once I found myself in that groove, once I found myself in that, you start to just kind of feel the music. You worry much less about the actual Dance Revolution type deals on the side of your reticle to keep you with the beat, and more just feeling the beat of the music as you're just slaying out. Now the weapons you'll be using while you're slaying out are all so finely tuned and so finely done that even the reload animations match up with the music when done properly, which always hits for a satisfying moment when you're in game, transitioning from blasting someone to reloading back to blasting someone so effortlessly. The first thing you'll get familiar with is Terminus, the Unknown Sword, which in my opinion has the best fury attack and was kind of the first thing I would start out using just to build that fury attack, just to hold it in my back pocket, just to use it when I needed it. The second thing you really get to use is Paz, the skull that is narrating the entire story, but is also a great ranged weapon with an awesome lightning attack as its fury attack. The next weapon is Persephone, the bread and butter of Metal Hellsinger. This gun is to Metal Hellsinger what the Super Shotgun is to Doom. It really is the best weapon and the fallback to when you are in trouble. And it has the Super Shotgun blast, double barrel style blast as its fury that really got me out of a lot of situations. Next up were the Hounds, the pair of dual pistols which basically became my other main weapon I used throughout my playthrough, being as they could take care of all the ranged enemies and have the best fury attack in the game next to the sword, being as it puts out a clone of you for a little bit to fight alongside you, and that is just invaluable later on in the game when things get super hectic. Next up was the Vulcan, a crossbow with a 2 arrow capacity that fired explosive arrows, and this thing I used a lot less than everything else, but not because it wasn't effective, but because I found the last weapon to be one of the funnest to use. And that weapon is the Hell Crows, a pair of boomerang style hooks that you throw out and come back and just destroy everything in their path. These are easily one of the funnest weapons to use, one of the most satisfying weapons to use, but also one of the hardest to use. So this actually brings the skill ceiling of this game up quite a bit, and if you learn how to use these, this game gets a lot easier. In terms of what you are fighting though, there isn't a crazy amount of diversity in the enemies. Got your basic little infantry enemies, your ranged enemies that are kind of tanky and kind of a pain in the butt. Then you got the shielded version of those guys, which is probably the most annoying enemy I have ran into a game in quite some time. These guys seem to just completely break momentum in this game as they took a lot more precision and time out of your playthrough to kind of concentrate on unless you had the perfect weapon and fury ready to go when they popped up. Next up you had the big tank-like enemies, of which there are only about 2 or 3 variations of, and a couple of other teleporty enemies that would like to rear their heads every now and again. But I think the biggest sin against the enemies in this game is probably that every single level, save for the last level, has the same boss. And saying that out loud sounds way worse than it is, but the first 7 levels are all the same demon that you are blasting away at. What changes though is that demon's offense to you and what you need to do in defense of that. Some of them multiply, some of them have fire attacks, some of them end up being like a bullet hell style game where you just have to barely dodge and weave between the energy blasts or whatever they're sending at you. But this sin is easily forgiven when you get to the final boss. The final boss in this game is a treat. It is how final bosses should be done. It is difficult. It is stressful. It pushes every skill that you have learned to the max. And if you haven't learned by the end of this game how to properly hold rhythm, how to properly put out DPS in this game, then you will surely die multiple times, as I did. I think this last boss killed me 3 or 4 times before I really got a handle on what I needed to do. I will say it will probably remain the standout of the entire campaign. In addition to all the different weapons you can load into each level with, of which you can only pick 2 at a time, other than Paz and Terminus, which are always by your side, there are sigils that can be unlocked from different challenges on each level called torments. Each one of these you'll be loaded into and have to defeat enemies in quick succession with perfect rhythm to get time back in order to not run out of time during the challenge, with different modifiers in each one giving you a very good sigil that can really change how the game plays, letting you keep your hit streak when you get hit, or building your hit streak faster, or building fury faster, or even switching to a different weapon and having the first few shots not count so you don't have to reload as often. And they can really help your momentum in the game. They aren't needed by any means, but the extra effort to put in something more than just the campaign and something to kind of help you if you're having a difficult time was appreciated, as was the added customization that they brought to combat.
So the Hells took another hit from us. Bloodied their noses, we did, but Judge wasn't ready to take us seriously yet. Which I guess is fair enough if you are the ruler of the Infernal and unaccustomed to taking the big L.
Overall, I think I would give this game somewhere around an 8 out of 10. It gets a lot of things right, like its presentation, its combat, and the absolutely wonderful soundtrack that I will 100% download and just be listening to on any regular day. The few places this game does falter aren't really that big a deal in the grand scheme of things when you think about how strong the core experience of it really is. And I would highly recommend to anyone who is even the least bit interested in first-person shooters or just metal music. You might find something that you love here. Even if you don't like shooters, you may find that the rhythm game and the design is really what hooks you in this. It is out right now on Xbox Game Pass or on PlayStation or on Steam, wherever you like to play, and I do highly recommend picking this one up. Thanks for watching if you make it to the end. Subscribe if you like my little conversations about the games that I've been playing lately. Like the video if you had a good time. And hopefully I'll see you next time. Peace.